Okay. So your first question is from P. It's a two-parter. Looking back at the draft, you had the last pick this year. After years of allegedly cheating while selecting the draft order by yourself, allegedly, was there any possibility that Laugh rigged the draft order this year?
No, there's no chance that Laugh rigged the draft order this year. I was there. Every year is the case, it's me, someone else in the league, a third-party person as well most of the time, who picks the names out of the hat. I hold the draft selection process in the highest regard, and it is beyond reproach, and there's no chance at all that there's any fishy business going on at the draft order selection process.
With the last pick, you went Puka into Gibbs into White. Some are describing this as the worst ever draft, as evidenced by your 0-2 start. How do you rebound and beat Dr. P this week?
Well, I rebound and beat Dr. P this week by my defense balling out, and the guy he just picked up, Hunter Henry, only having 2 catches for 9 yards, so big 1.9 points. And people also said that the 2012 Seahawks had a bad draft when they went Bobby Irvin, Bobby Wagner, Bruce Irvin, Bobby Wagner, and Russell Wilson, and you gave it enough time, and they won a Super Bowl. So I think my draft is going to be just fine. Just needs a little bit of time. My guys got to heal up, and I will be back at the top of the league standings where I belong before you know it. Next question.
Okay. Big Dad would like to know if you think that Little P's, not to be confused with Andrew, the other very tiny P we know, if her arrival has contributed to your 0-2 start. If yes, how do you plan to juggle being a father of one while still putting the necessary time into the most important thing in life, the Discord D-Gen League?
I don't think her arrival has had any adverse reaction or adverse effect on my standing in the league, my play. In fact, I think that from now on, if I have a question between do I want to start T. Higgins or Demarcus Robinson, I'm gonna consult her, and she can look one way or the other, and I'll choose the player based on which way she looks or something, because I think she's lucky. So next question.
All right, from Opie, your team is basically dead in the water with injuries, etc. Do you find yourself scouting players for next year?
It's funny you use the word dead in the water, and I messaged you again. It's like, are you sure you want to say dead in the water? Because there's also, I just finished reading a book about Ernest Shackleton and his voyage to the South Pole and how he was thought to be dead in the water. And did he look towards, next year and think, I'm done with this trip, I'm just going to resign myself to my fate? No, he got in a little rowboat and rowed his 100 miles to South Georgia Island, and he saved all of his crew because they believed in him. They believed in him, and I believe in my guys. And I think I'm going to salvage this season and make my way to the playoffs at the least. And then once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. So, no, my season's not dead in the water, and I'm not looking towards next year. I'm focused on this season. Next question.
All right, so Cranky says, many people expect the commissioner to be smart, capable, wise, strong, and effective at his job. Some inside the league are now claiming that you are, in fact, not meeting any of these criteria. When doctors discovered my mitral valve was no longer effective, it was recommended that it be replaced. What is your response to those who think that the same action should be taken on you as the commission?
I think that if anybody actually thinks that, they should speak up, let their voices be heard. And, next question.
All right, last question, which actually appears to be 2 questions.
Yeah, Laugh can't follow the rules. Now, Andrew at least said this is a 2-parter, but these guys, it's a lot to expect them to be able to follow rules, so it's okay.
Okay, so who was the first team to wear blue and silver? Please include any version of blue and silver as blue and silver.
Okay, so the first team, now, Ryan, this is a great question, because I didn't know all this stuff before I looked it up, because you said be very, very, very specific, and I'm being very specific. The first team to wear blue and silver was the Detroit Lions in 1934. I think that was the only part of the question you read, was what team wears blue and silver, or was there more to that part of the question?
Yeah, who was the first team to wear blue and silver? What team first started the Thanksgiving Day game tradition? If there was a team that copied both of these traditions, would you say that they were copied?
Okay. So this is what. Second part, another great 2-part question. So the Lions started in 1934, and actually, this is on the record, the Buffalo Bills, in their first 2 seasons, they hired somebody who was involved in creating the Detroit Lions color scheme, and they hired him to make their colors match the Lions, and they admitted this. And they said after like the first 1 or 2 seasons in 1960, 61, they said, hey, we copied the Lions, but now we want to go our own way and have our own color scheme. So I was like, I didn't know that. Like that was like really cool to look up. It's history, it's league history. And then this is another thing I didn't know until I had to answer your question, Ryan, was that the team that started the Thanksgiving Day tradition, this is actually like crazy, it's a city. It was Chicago, it was the Bears and the Cardinals from 1922 until 1934. They played each other every Thanksgiving. They started the NFL tradition of playing on Thanksgiving Day. And then the Lions copied them in 1934. So there wasn't one team that copied both traditions, but really like the Lions copied them, and then they opened the floodgates for other teams to like play on Thanksgiving. And then thankfully, the Cowboys came around in 1966, and they said, hey, we need to save this league's, like, the viewership's down, attendance is down, we need something to save the league. And they were kind of like the NBA before Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. They were like, we need somebody to come help. And Cowboys thankfully answered the call and said, hey, we'll do this every year. And the league's never been the same since. I mean, it's only grown. Cowboys are worth like $30 billion or something insane. So thankfully that happened that way. And thanks for your questions, Ryan. They were fantastic. Next question, please.
All right, Kevin says, sup, Commish. I know your team caught the injury bug, so I'm not going to go hard on you. Your team is solid, and you're doing the best you can with what you have. So instead, I would like to ask if you could give us an analysis on just how dogshit Opie's team is. Could you point out that I, inaugural DDL and DOL champion, was correct that Opie's team would collapse after having a once-in-a-lifetime performance that will never be seen by him again? Thanks, Commish. You're the best. Go boys.
Go boys. This is a great question, probably the best question I'm going to get, which is, of course, from the inaugural champ. Good question. So I said it in the draft review that Opie's team hinges on 2 things. That's his quarterback and his running back having monster games. Week 1, not only did he have monster games from those 2, he had like Romeo Dobbs went off for like 35 points. It's never on like 3 catches. He had like 138 yards and like 2 touchdowns on 3 or 4 catches. Insane. AR had like 212 yards and a couple tutters on like 9 completions. Like it was very fluky. It was very like this can never happen. It was just like just biblical stuff happening to your team in week 1, champ. And so yeah, it's probably never gonna happen again. And you did call it on September 9th. I looked up in the logs. September 9th, you went on the record and said Opie's team had like a once in a generational run in week 1, and it's going to fall apart from there. And he lost last week. Horrible showing. Now Cooper Kupp's hurt. That's another thing. He benefited from Cooper Kupp not being hurt week 1, and my guy Puka getting hurt week 1, which is just one of the many injuries on my team, as you pointed out, champ. And so you called it. Next question.
Okay, so Joey asks, does it depress you to know that just how alone you really are? Shout out to Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight.
Can you say that again? What did he say?
He said, does it depress you to know just how alone you really are? And then shout out to Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. Down there in 11th place with one person to say that you're better than.
No, it doesn't, because it's so early season. This is typical stuff from somebody who's new to fantasy football, like Joey, is that he thinks week 2 is like the end of the season when it's like a marathon, not a sprint. So no, I'm not even worried about that.
Right. He did have a follow-up question.
No, of course, there's another follow-up question. These people just can't follow the rules. But yeah, go ahead.
Now that you're 0-2 and your Rat Tooth brother is 2-0 with a 3-0 all-time record against you in fantasy, will you maybe start taking his advice and look at how he plays the game in the future?
I'm not going to take his advice, but he does take my advice. He calls me regularly for advice. But I'm proud, You got to have at least one Vatula at the top of the rankings, and right now it's him, but pretty soon it'll be me. Next question.
Okay, so Waddle's question. Are you worried at all how your failure this week will impact your newborn's view of her dad and his ability to achieve success? And follow-up question. Are you instead intentionally exposing her to disappointment early, as I'm sure you plan on raising her to be a Cowboys fan alongside you?
Well, she will be a Cowboys fan. She already has shown an affinity to the Cowboys. They were on her first weekend watching football. They won, and she giggled every time they scored. So it was like, this is crazy. Gwen can attest to that. But no, so what I see happening, like, when I close my eyes, I see this. I see my team coming back from injury. I see making the playoffs. I see myself winning the trophy. I see myself having a parade down Grand River Avenue here in Howell. And I see it being recorded the whole time for posterity's sake. And I see that when she's, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, and she's looking into starting fantasy football herself, she can look back on this season and draw inspiration that no matter how bad of the hand you're dealt, all the injuries in the world, all the tough breaks going against you, that you can come back from that and you can become champion. So that's what I see happening. Yeah, anything else? Or is that the last question?
That was the last question.
Okay, that's the last question. Well, that concludes my week 2 presser.